everyone, welcome back to the series about attachment theory and attachment styles. Today we're going to do a deep dive into the anxious attachment style. So, if you've ever felt like you're too clingy or you're too needy, let me stop you right there. Nothing is wrong with you, you're not broken. If you missed the first video, there we discussed the basics of attachment theory and also, on a very surface level, the three attachment styles: anxious, secure, and avoidant. If you feel like you would like to have these basic foundations first before we dive into the anxious attachment style today, go ahead and watch the video that I have linked in the description box below. So then let's just get started. So before we start, I would really like to emphasize this again. To all my dear people with an anxious attachment style, nothing is wrong with you, you're not too much, and your desire for connection is not a weakness. It's just human, and it's also part of your unique attachment system. So when I first read the book Attached, it was such a crazy feeling for me because I wasn't aware of this attachment theory, attachment style concept at the time. And I was like, why do these authors know me so well? Like, it was so weird reading about your behaviors, your reactions, and everything on paper. And I was like, am I reading a manual about myself? Like, what is this? And honestly, it was so profound because I really felt understood. And also, it made me understand myself even better. And I understood my relationship patterns and everything. And I feel like this type of self-awareness is crucial for building healthy and more fulfilling relationships. So let's break it down. People with an anxious attachment style tend to have a super sensitive attachment system. Your brain is wired to pick up on emotional cues from others, especially potential signs of trouble or rejection. That is why even like the tiniest thing, like a late text reply, feels like a huge deal. This sensitivity is a double-edged sword because on one hand, you're amazing at picking up changes in other people's emotions before they even realize it. But on the other hand, this can lead you to misinterpret things and assume that things are worse than they are and jumping to conclusions. Calming down often feels impossible to you when you're in such a situation until you get the reassurance from the person or your partner that everything is okay. Without the reassurance, your mind keeps spinning and looking for clues and explanations, which makes the whole anxiety worse and worse. When something feels off, your brain jumps into action with what are called activating strategies. I will give you some examples now. Constantly thinking about your partner to the point where it's hard to focus on anything else, remembering only their positive traits, putting them on a pedestal while doubting your own worth, feeling an anxious void when you're not in contact with them, believing you're only compatible with very few people, which creates a fear of being alone. Well, then comes the protest behaviors. You go to moves when you feel like the relationship is in danger or you get mixed signals. These are actions you take when you feel insecure or rejected in the relationship. So let me give you some examples. Excessive attempts to reestablish contact, like texting or calling multiple times, or anxiously waiting for a phone call, withdrawing or shutting down emotionally to see if your partner will notice, like for example, sitting silently engrossed, or like literally turning your back on your partner or just not speaking to them, then keeping score, waiting just as long to reply as your partner did, then things like rolling eyes, looking away, or leaving the room abruptly while your partner speaks, then also threatening to leave or acting distant to test their reaction. So, for example, expressing doubts about the relationship and just stating that you can't do it anymore and hoping your partner will stop you from leaving, appearing unavailable, or simply like acting busy or unapproachable, ignoring phone calls, or falsely claiming to have plans when you don't, making them jealous, whether by talking about an ex or making plans with an ex or just going out with the girls to places that you usually wouldn't. I don't know, just provoking a reaction from your partner. Sound familiar? These behaviors actually come from a place of fear and a deep need for reassurance. But the problem is that with such destructive and not solution-oriented behaviors, you're actually pushing the other person further away instead of, getting that closeness and connection that you want instead. So it's counterproductive. And I'm aware not everyone who has an anxious attachment style, behaves that way, and it's a spectrum also. But, these are some common traits that were listed in the book. Hey, I wanted to quickly add something here. While I was editing the video, I realized there's a point I really should emphasize because I think it adds a lot of context. When you first hear these traits or behaviors described, it's so easy to think that the anxiously attached person is just being too much or that they must be exhausting to deal with. But it's really important to understand where this comes from. These patterns usually form when love felt unpredictable growing up, when sometimes it was safe and close, and other times distant or uncertain. So their nervous system learned to stay alert, to monitor, to make sure they wouldn't be caught off guard by disconnection again. That's not neediness, that's actually protection. So it's their body remembering what inconsistency felt like and trying to make sure it never happens again. I think when you start seeing it that way, it's easier to have compassion both for yourself and for others because it stops being about being too much and starts being about someone who just never felt consistently safe in love. All right, now let's talk about something that people with an anxious attachment style hear a lot, the word codependent. I don't know why, but I feel like mainly due to the narrative in the self-help industry, codependency, at least to me, it always sounded like a negative thing, as if it was bad to be codependent and that you have to find happiness within yourself and don't rely on relationships for fulfillment and things like that. And I mean, of course, to a certain degree, that is definitely true in everything. But thanks to the authors from Attached, I realized that needing connection and relying on others is not a flaw, it's biology. Studies have shown that our bodies literally sync with our partners. Our blood pressure, heart rate, hormone levels, breathing. All of that aligns. So there's a reason holding a loved one's hand can reduce your anxiety. And here's something very fascinating, the dependency paradox. It says that the more we feel we can depend on someone, the more independent we actually become. Healthy relationships aren't about avoiding dependency. They're about creating the kind of secure bond that gives you the confidence to thrive. So I think that's such a beautiful thing. What this tells me is that you're just stronger when you have the right person on your side. You're more confident, you feel like you can take on the world because you have the right support. So why am I saying all of this? Please don't feel bad or ashamed for feeling incomplete when you're not in a relationship or for depending on your partner or wanting to be close to them. It's just part of human nature and you don't have to apologize for it. So here's the deal. Having an anxious attachment style is not a flaw. It's a part of you that can be understood, managed, and even embraced. When you understand and recognize your patterns, it's the first step towards positive change and more fulfilling relationships. So why does this resonate with me so much, or why am I making a video about this? Reading about the shared struggles of people with an anxious attachment style wasn't just a journey of self-discovery. It was also reassurance that nothing is inherently wrong with us. It's a reminder that there is a reason behind our feelings and actions, especially when at times it feels like we're powerless to change them. So that is exactly where we're going to continue in the next video. We're going to explore the dynamics of anxious avoidant relationships and also look into why it's so crucial for you and your emotional well-being to have a secure partner. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more content on relationships. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Do you know maybe someone with an anxious attachment style, or do you recognize yourself in some of these traits that I described? Please let me know and see you next time. Bye!